Hi everyone, this is Nick. Welcome to AstroExploring. In this video I'm going to be giving my review and overview of the Skywatcher Star Adventurer. I have a couple of images to share with you at the end of this video, so make sure you stick around to the end. Okay, let's jump into it. Star Adventurer has 7 tracking modes, which I'll go over each one of those individually. It has a built-in polar scope, and the mount itself has a payload capacity of 5 kilos. So you can see I've got my DSLR, and this is a 70 to 300mm lens sitting on top. But it's also capable of holding my Skywatcher 72ED refractor telescope. That weighs about 2 kilograms, and then with a camera attached to that, you're probably talking about 4 kilograms in total with all the cables and the field flattener, etc. The Star Adventurer is the absolute perfect tool for traveling about. It's very portable. You can just grab and go with this. It's very, very light, very easy and quick to set up. I can set this up with polar alignment in less than 5 minutes. It is very quick. Unlike my HEQ5, which takes probably half an hour to set up in total. So this is great if you're out and about traveling or are in a light polluted area and want to get out to some darker skies but don't want to have to lug all your really heavy gear around. This is absolutely perfect for that. There's 2 ways to power the Star Adventurer. So just here is a mini USB cable. So you could attach mini USB in this end just to a normal USB and plug that straight into a sort of portable power bank, if you like. You can get them for 20, 30 quid on Amazon, really cheap. The other way you can power this, and this is how I generally do it, is if I just take the polar scope cover off the back. That is a battery cover, and there are actually 4 AA batteries in this. I think you can get about maybe 16 hours of imaging out of these batteries. The batteries that I'm using in the Star Adventurer at the minute are actually just the Amazon basic AA batteries, and last night was my 3rd imaging session, and admittedly I only managed to get out there for an hour because of how cloudy it was, but still that was the 3rd imaging session. I can definitely get a 4th, a 5th one might potentially be a problem. The good thing about this, however, is that the way that the Star Adventurer warns you about batteries going low is these 2 lights here will start to flash on the side, and that's an indicator that the batteries are starting to get low. I didn't know what that was when I first saw it. I took a guess that that's what it was, but I'd already set up and I'd already polar aligned and I'd already started imaging. So when I saw them, I thought, I'll see how long I can get out of them and just image until the batteries run dead. And it still lasted for a couple of hours of imaging time before I came in, and they still hadn't died. So I think you can even with the batteries flashing, you can still get a whole imaging session out of this, which is great. So next to the mini USB port, you've got an auto guided port. I haven't actually used this for auto guiding, and a couple of reasons for that. One, it can only auto guide in right ascension. It can't do the declination, so it can only track in right ascension like that. It cannot track with the tilt of the camera. I don't know if you can see that moving there, but it can't track that way. So I don't bother. Another reason is that because this is a portable setup, I like to keep this as simple as possible. So I generally just shoot with my camera. If I do have my telescope on there, the only other thing I'll have attached to the telescope is a dew strap, just to keep dew away. I don't use this for anything else, because for me, I like the portability of just picking this up, taking it outside and starting to take pictures after a polar alignment. I don't like to start messing about setting up my laptop and PhD guiding. Just above the auto guiding port, you've got a snap port. You can use that to connect straight to your camera. I don't use this. Again, I've got a remote shutter release cable that I bought for about 10 quid off Amazon. I find that much easier to use. You're quite limited with what you can actually do when you've connected to this port. So I just find it's easier to have an external remote shutter release cable. Most of us with DSLRs have probably already got them anyway. Above that, you've got the hemisphere switch. It's important to have that switched to the hemisphere that you're in. I'm in the northern hemisphere, so I just leave it switched to that. So these 2 buttons here are what you would use if you wanted to move your mount. So if you're looking for a target in the sky and you think you're pointed in roughly the right direction and you've taken a test shot, but you're not quite, it's not either in the center of the frame or it's not in the frame at all, but you think you're not far away, you can use these two buttons and it will move them out for you. I have used these, but I generally don't use them. I find that they're far too slow. The easiest thing to do is to either unlock the clutch and move it in right ascension, or if you've got this L bracket connected rather than just a ball head, then I find that just twisting this is much easier than using these two buttons. It's also a lot faster. Okay, so the setup I've got here is I've got the L bracket with my DSLR on top and a counterweight bar attached to the bottom. This setup is well, it's the only setup you could use if you were connecting a small refractor telescope. I highly recommend this setup if you're using a telephoto lens. This lens zooms to 300mm, so this lens is quite heavy, and if you're just using a ball head adapter, which I'll show you in a minute, then this focal length will probably be a little bit too much. In terms of stability, you'll probably struggle to get good pictures. So this is what I use. It's really easy to find balance. If I just show you there, I've unlocked the clutch, I'm moving that around, and that's perfectly balanced. The other setup you can have is you can have a ball head adapter, and the Star Adventurer, that was really tight. The Star Adventurer comes with this adapter. So where this dovetail bar is sat right now, that just goes in place of that. Ball head sits on top, and your camera would sit on top of that. The great thing about this is that you can just undo that, and you've now got free range to move your camera anywhere in the sky, which is really easy, so much easier to make adjustments with this. This is great if you're doing a wide field shot, or you know, a really wide field like Milky Way shot or something like that. So the Star Adventurer has a built-in polar scope, which is great for a really accurate polar alignment, which is absolutely necessary if you're going to be shooting long exposures. The polar scope itself, you're looking through this way, so you want to make sure that you're pointing north with this mount. And I'll create I'm going to create a polar alignment tutorial video for this equipment, so make sure you keep a watch out for that. Basically, there's another cap just underneath. I can't take it off at the minute because this bracket's in the way. But you can polar align with this bracket in place. You can see straight through it. What I don't like about the polar scope on the Star Adventurer is this. This is your polar scope illuminator. So unlike other portable sky trackers that have a built-in illuminator, this is external. Now, the problem with this is that when you've got your equipment sitting on here like this, you can't sit that into the polar scope to light it up. So you'll need to take this off in order to clip that into the polar scope just there. The way I try to get around that is by doing my polar alignment at twilight. So you don't need the polar scope to be lit if you're polar aligning at twilight, because you can still see the numbers through the polar scope, and I find that to be really useful. Okay, so on this side of the Star Adventurer, you've got your dial, and you'll turn this to whatever mode you're wanting to shoot in. Most of the time, you're going to turn it one click, and you'll have it on celestial. You can also do solar tracking, lunar tracking, half speed, 2 times speed, 6 times, and 12 times, and the last one being off. So I'll talk about each of these in turn. So celestial is pretty obvious. That is doing your deep sky images. The next one is solar tracking. Again, that is for tracking the sun, and please never look at the sun through a telescope or your camera without a proper filter in place, because you will damage your eyes. Lunar tracking, for those of us that like to take moon photography, or when it's a full moon and you don't have a light pollution filter to get rid of the moonshine in the sky, then we can always refer back to our moon photography. Half speed, this is really good for landscape photography. If you're shooting, you could do a Milky Way shot with a really nice foreground, and on the half speed you'll get a bit of tracking, but on a 30-second exposure, if you leave that to celestial tracking, you might start to get a bit of blur. This will track it at half that speed, so you could have a foreground shot and it would still look fine. And then you start getting to modes where you might want to shoot star trails and things like that. So 2, 6 and 12. If you're wanting to shoot long time lapses and star trails and things like that, those are the modes that you use. I haven't used those modes yet. I've pretty much only used mine for celestial and lunar. That's all I've had the opportunity for. When we do get a very rare clear night, I really want to make the most of being able to shoot deep sky images, so that's pretty much my go-to every time. So that is the Star Adventurer itself. Now, the Star Adventurer is actually sitting on the equatorial wedge that comes as part of the Pro pack, and this wedge is where you would set your azimuth and altitude, and it also has a bubble in it to make sure that you're level, which is really handy. So on this side, there are numbers on the front, so you could set your rough latitude. Here in my location, I'm at about 51 degrees, so I set this to 51 degrees, point it north, and then I should always be able to see Polaris, and then it's just a case of making my small adjustments to where Polaris should be on the polar clock, depending on what time of day it is. So the extra things that you'll need to buy in order to be able to make use of the Star Adventurer is you'll need a really sturdy tripod to sit it on. This one I bought off Amazon. It was £100, and it has an 8 kilogram payload capacity, which is perfect. The Star Adventurer only has a payload capacity of 5 kilos, so this is more than capable. In order to be able to shoot this video, I've raised the sort of pole in the middle all the way up, which is why it's actually quite shaky in this position. I wouldn't normally have this extended. And then it has a hook on the bottom, so you can also hold some weight off the bottom of that, like a small dumbbell or a big bottle of water or something like that, just to really weigh that down, give some more sturdiness. So if you're already a photographer and you're wanting to get into nighttime photography of deep sky images, or even just landscape pictures of the Milky Way, then you've probably already got a tripod, and you've probably already got a DSLR or mirrorless camera, and the Star Adventurer is a perfect introduction to be able to take in deep sky astrophotography, because the Star Adventurer itself costs less than 300 quid. So if you already have the equipment that you'll need to use with it, then 300 quid is really not a very big investment in this hobby, and it means that you can start taking deep sky images straight away. So I absolutely love this sky tracker. There are other ones out there. This one is probably the most popular, or certainly the most well used in the UK. Everybody else that I've spoken to is using this version. I can't recommend this enough. If you're looking to get into astrophotography, then I personally don't think there is anything better than this mount. So if you're looking to get into astrophotography, but you don't know what to buy, or you don't want the expense of purchasing a go-to mount, a nice refractor telescope and adapters, etc., then I cannot recommend this enough. 300 quid, and with your existing equipment, you can start taking pictures of Andromeda, the Orion Nebula, Rosette Nebula, anything that you want to. As long as you can find it in the sky, you can take a picture of it, and that is absolutely amazing. This equipment unlocked the world of astrophotography to me, and while I do now have a small telescope and I've got an HEQ5 Pro mount with the go-to capability, I still use this all the time, purely because of how quick and easy it is to set up, especially if you've got a quick, like half an hour between clouds where you think, oh, quick, I'll get some pictures in. Then this is the go-to every time, because by the time I've set up the HEQ5, then the clouds have come back over and I've lost all that imaging time. So I really cannot recommend this enough. So leave me a comment down below. I've seen some crazy setups with this. This is pretty much the setup that I use nearly all the time. But I have seen some people that will have a small refractor telescope here, and you can actually attach a DSLR on this thread here as well. People are using this with auto guiding and things like that. So comment down below, let me know what your setup is, and also if this is your first time here, then please subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up.